All righty, good Monday morning to you. Welcome in to the Chico Bormann Show here in the Big Play Sports Network. Glad to have you along. Those of you streaming on Twitter, you can, obviously, if you're already here, you know how you're doing that. On Twitter, at Chico Show CLE. You can also do so on YouTube. And you go over to YouTube, type in the Chico Bormann Show, hit subscribe, and you are all set to go. We are all set to go on this Monday. Before we go any further, I feel obligated. We mentioned this a few weeks ago when we had the bad air quality. Boom. The air quality alert today. The air quality index is 159. That is considered unhealthy. So just be careful out there, kids. I don't think it was when you were gone, Bohm, and we had that one day where it was clear. It just smelled like one big outdoor barbecue without the smell of ribs or burgers or any of that. I think it was like 240 something, which was just mind-boggling. But apparently we're getting some more of that smoke and haze and all that good stuff. So all that bad stuff, actually. So just be careful out there. And I feel like I'm a weatherman again. Keep an eye to the sky. We're here to prepare you, not scare you. Turn around, don't drown. If you feel like you're lightheaded or short of breath, get inside, take a seat. Tell your boss you need the day off. Something like that. All right. Anyway, 216-626-7901, the number to get involved. Again, 216-626-7901. You can tweet at me at Big Play Chico. Tweet the show at Chico Show CLE. Mr. Bombastic, that would be Michael Bohm, is here as well. Bohm, you were summoned from the pen. So somebody, and I just happened to come across this yesterday, and then I got the details this morning, just a little while ago, and apparently we had somebody run out of gas in the band, not your band, but another band. They ran out of gas. They went to the pen, and out came Mr. Bombastic. How did you fare? Better than Trevor Steffen?
You know, Chico, it was awesome. It was really cool. We got to play at the Taste of Tremont, and yeah, it was an incredible, very lively atmosphere, and I had a lot of fun. I really didn't expect to play, and I was playing bass, by the way, which is not my primary instrument, so it was like, I just couldn't say no.
Bass drum?
Bass guitar.
Bass guitar. Okay. What guitar do you normally play?
Just a regular.
Like, oh, okay. All right.
You know, like a 6-string.
See, I'm an
or
idiot.
sometimes 12 strings. But yeah, you
12
have your standard guitars. I don't know if there's like a real term for it. There probably is. I'm just not very knowledgeable in that regard.
Is the bass guitar more difficult, Bo?
I think it's easier in a lot of ways, but it's also now to play really good bass guitar, like slap bass and stuff like that. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yes.
And like Flea.
Come on, Bohm, give me some credit.
I mean, you've never heard of Wu-Tang Clan, Lana Del Rey. Nothing would shock me at this point.
Red Hot Chili Peppers I have heard of, yes.
Okay.
And they're very good.
Yeah. By the way, he didn't start playing until he was 17, which is just crazy that he could become such a prodigy of the game of playing bass.
I like that word.
Slappa the bass, man. But anyways, yeah, no, like their bass can be a really incredible and like entirely ridiculously challenging instrument. But just to hold it down on bass, I feel like is a little bit easier than guitar because you're not playing full chords. You're just playing mostly like root notes and little fills, and kind of trying to mimic what the drums are doing, trying to be on the same page as the bass drum.
Did you have a chance to mingle with the crowd before, during, and after the performance?
Yeah, I was in the crowd a little bit. You know, I went and got something to eat afterwards. There was a lot of good food. The lines were ridiculous. It was so packed, Chico.
You should have you should be able to just go, excuse me, I'm Bohm. And they should just, obviously, if you're part of the band, I would have. Did you give any kind of shout out to the show?
I didn't get on the mic, but
all right.
I was at that point. I had never heard any of the music. I was just trying to figure out the songs. But I did have my super water, my Nirvana super water.
Well, that's great. But
I
if you don't mention the
made sure
show,
to
it doesn't
drink it,
matter.
label out, Chico.
Yeah. Well, if it doesn't, if you don't mention the show, we don't.
I wasn't on the mic.
Yeah.
You
Well, you take initiative, Bohm. We've been over this. You take the initiative.
What I need is a Chico Bormann shirt.
And you.
if Big Play could just hook me up, I'll wear it on stage.
Nobody needs that.
I need it.
Yeah. We'll try it. We'll work on getting that for you.
Yeah.
Maybe even if Cody is unable to do it, because I mean he's got a lot going on. Maybe I'll just take. It'll be like that'll be the just. I don't know.
It should be a shirt of you doing the windy.
Yes, the windy. Speaking of the windy, Bohm, did you know that the Cavs are playing in the Summer League Championship game tonight against the Houston Rockets? Have you been following closely to the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Not as closely as I would have liked, honestly.
Okay.
Because I want to follow the progress of Imani Bates. I think that's cool. And then Isaiah Mobley really seems to have made an impact in this summer league, and he's been very effective in just the G League last season. So there are some players here that I'm really looking forward to, hopefully potentially making an impact to some extent throughout the course of the Cavs season.
Yeah, they've had some guys, and again, with Summer League, you have to understand, these guys, granted, it's nice that they're in the championship, but, they've had Luke Travers is a guy that they've had for a while, been playing overseas. He's got the size, probably needs to develop more of a shot. Sam Merrill, the guy that I thought went to Minnesota, went to Utah State, so I was very close. Geographically speaking.
You almost had it.
Sam Merrill, I didn't realize he's 27 years old. So, who knows? Maybe, again, when you just that's kind of like, I would think that's kind of like in AAA. You're just you're hanging around. You want the dream. You want to get that call up. You want to get, maybe it's just a 10-day, and then that leads to something. But yeah, good for them. They're playing their young guys, and they will be taking on the Rockets tonight. I'd love to say I have all the details on when and where and how to watch. And I did watch I've admitted that I haven't watched hardly any Summer League action, but I did watch some of the Chicago game on, I want to say it was last Thursday. And Craig Porter Jr. had a very good game. Of course, they were talking about Imani Bates. Imani Bates he's so thin. He's 6'9", 180 pounds, Bohm.
That is crazy.
180. That's a string bean.
I wish I weighed 180. Jeez.
Yeah, me too. But 6'9", 180.
Yeah, I wonder who has less body fat, him or Victor Wembanyama. I feel like they've got to be neck and neck in this one.
Yeah, and similarly, and I love this because immediately, everybody says the same thing. Well, Bates, you got to put on weight. He's got to get, like all of a sudden,
hit the weights, Bates.
You ready for the week, Bohm?
We're rocking and rolling, baby. Woo!
Imani Bates, all of a sudden, he's just going to, he's going to show up in the fall, and he's going to be 30 pounds heavier. He's 19 years old. We forget that. He's 19, and, he's still growing into his body and all that good stuff. But I think people just assume, oh, well, he's got to put on weight. Sometimes it's not that easy. Now, of course, when you don't want to put on weight, then it is very easy. But, so some of these guys, you hear that with Wembanyama, and you hear it with Imani Bates. But anyway, they will be playing in the championship game tonight. I'm curious and would love to hear from you on this, 216-626-7901. The Guardians, who had a rough time in Texas, not only dealing with the heat, where it's 112 degrees. 112 freaking degrees. But the Guardians were swept by Texas, and they are now 2.5 games back. They've lost 4 in a row, if you count before the All-Star break. So they've lost 4 in a row, and they are 2.5 games back of Minnesota. They are in Pittsburgh tonight, beginning a 3-game series. So the Guardians versus the Pirates. You have your choice. You can do both. I mean, no one's saying you have to only pick one, but what's going to be the more appointment television? I can say this. After skimming over Twitter after yesterday's loss, and it was a tough one, and Trevor Stephan, just when you want to think he might be over those problems, he has a really rough one. Now, granted, we said this on Friday. Texas is arguably the best offensive team in all of baseball. Atlanta is right there, but I mean Texas. That is a loaded lineup. They spent a lot of money. Now they're finally healthy, and they're a good baseball team. Very good baseball team. I'm not making excuses, but that's the fact. Now, the Guardians, it just felt like everybody's wind, all the wind came out of everyone's sails after the sweep by the Texas Rangers. Padone was checking in. He said his dad was already saying, well, that's it for the Guardians. Bark, bark, here we go, Brownies, here we go. And you know what? I'm sure he's not alone with that. Now, we're all waiting. I mean, everybody is waiting. It's okay. We're all waiting and waiting anxiously for football season, and the Browns are going to report next week to Greenbrier in West Virginia, get the week head start, take on the Jets. Joe Thomas going into the Hall of Fame in a little bit, and then we're going to really start cranking it up with, preseason and training camp and college football and pros and all of that. But for right now, everybody's just kind of waiting. And so the Guardians, Cavs, Summer League, I mean, this is what this time of the year is. But I can't tell if it's just, well, it's hot out and I'm bored and I'm irritated. So if the Guardians get swept, I'm writing them off for the year. I mean, yeah, things don't look good right now. And by the way, we're going to talk to Zach Meisel of The Athletic coming up at noon. Meisel, it's funny. He penned a column on Thursday for The Athletic, and it was kind of just, let's focus on the positives from the first half and moving forward. And then as soon as that one posts, you get the news on Shane Bieber, and they get swept. So I'm sure he's getting a lot of, thanks a lot, Zach. But it really wasn't his fault. Maybe it was. But, what direction, where do they go from here? I mean, I think in terms of Shane Bieber, I can't imagine that any team has any interest in him. Now, they did get a good report, a very good report, considering the circumstances. And it's also similar to Tristan McKenzie, although I think Tristan, we know, it feels much more serious. Anytime it's an elbow, though, it's a big deal. Shane Bieber, and I didn't realize this, Shane Bieber apparently has been dealing with this for a little while now, since like May. That frightened me a little bit. So he's had some elbow inflammation. It's affected it. He doesn't throw his curveball as much. He once had maybe the best curveball in the game. So now it's all starting to make sense. Well, now he's got some issues, and they're going to rest him. He's not going to do anything for at least 2 weeks, and then they revisit it. But when you're talking about this Guardians team as we get close to August 1, which is the trade deadline, I can't imagine a team is still interested in him. If they are interested in him, I can't imagine that. I mean, if you thought that they were devaluing him before and lowballing the Guardians before, well, and it just doesn't feel like that would be the Guardians' MO, Chernoff or Antonetti, to say, okay, well, yeah, he's struggling right now, and we don't know if he's going to, so we'll sell him on the cheap. It doesn't feel like something they would do. Unfortunately, they're kind of stuck in no man's land. Like you thought before this news about Bieber, okay, it's going to go one of two ways. One, he's gone, he gets traded, and they bring in some, young talent, but hopefully proven ready, certainly maybe an outfield bat and maybe some others. Or they decide to hang on, and he's going to be the anchor for the rotation because, well, Tristan McKenzie. So now you're kind of in no man's land. And that's, it's a difficult place to be. Now, that's what Chernoff and Antonetti get paid for, is taking that. I always talk about it, the good, long, hard look in the mirror as August 1 approaches. What are we? I mean, yet here they are 2.5 games back in a division that it's almost like you're happy about the division being so up for grabs, and then you're also ticked off that it's so up for grabs, because you wonder, not that anybody likes this, but I think if you're a general manager, I don't want to speak for Antonetti or Chernoff, but if you're a front office, you kind of, I would think you want to have a good idea. Like, you want to know what you need, or, you know what, we're not even close to being where we need to be, so we're just going to, we're going to sell. We'll kind of, position ourselves for next year and beyond. This team feels like it's like, again, right there in the middle. And then, like I said, and they were already there going into the weekend. But then they get the news on Bieber. Then they get swept by Texas, which, again, Texas is very good. But now all of a sudden it's like, I mean, fans on Twitter, it was like, well, they're done. I'm done with the guard. That was fun while it lasted. I'm like, wow. They're 2.5 games back. I mean, I don't know. How do you evaluate this team as a fan? How do you evaluate this team as a general manager, as a president of operations, Chris Antonetti and Mike Chernoff? We shall see. A very interesting weekend in sports, Bohm. It's always breakfast at Wimbledon. I don't know if you're a big tennis guy. I'm really not, but when it gets to the final and it's Djokovic and it's the best, and what is it? Alcaraz, not Alcatraz. Escape to Alcatraz. That's a good movie, by the way. James Bond, very, very. No, Clint Eastwood, very, very.
I've been to Alcatraz. I've seen it.
So have I. Did you take the tour?
Yeah.
The headphones?
I think I did have the headphones.
Yeah. This was, for me, it was back in the 90s.
Did you ever see that Nick Cage movie though? About that was filmed at Alcatraz? I think is it just called Alcatraz?
I don't know.
Oh, so yeah.
The one that I'm.
But Sean Connery was in it as well.
Oh. Alex Trebek, what about your mother?
Sucker Trebek.
I'd like
maybe the greatest SNL skit of all time.
I like tits now.
I'll take the rapist for 2,000. That's therapist.
Anyway, so the young guy gets it done over Djokovic. That's always fun to see. So you had Wimbledon going on. This week we're gonna have breakfast at the British Open, as now the final major of the year. It used to be the PGA. I'm still not used to that. I'm always used to the PGA Championship being the final one, and they do that, glory's last shot, final major of the year. But now it's the British Open. Rory McIlroy winning this past weekend at the Scottish Open. Now the British coming up at Royal Liverpool. So that's going to be fun. I wouldn't want it on a regular basis, but I always enjoy when it does happen, the sports in the morning, like real early in the morning. Like before, there were many years when I hated it because I slept right through it. But now, because I'm an old fart and I do things and, whatever, so I'm usually up. I mean, not say 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, for you, Bohm, this would work out good. Like you could catch the early guys teeing off before you go to bed. Like you can, the 3:08 tee time Eastern time, Bohm. That's right in your wheelhouse.
That is in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, you can just kind of put down the guitar, wipe off your brow, take a swig of super water, and watch some of the British, and then go right back to, what you're doing.
That sounds like a good night.
Yeah, that does sound like a good. I've had
morning, depending
with the exception of the instrument, I've had plenty like those. This is why now I get up early. But I'm looking forward to that. This weekend just felt sort of just strange. Like Steph Curry wins that golf tournament, and by the way, there are guys living charmed lives, and then there's Steph Curry. Think about it. Like this guy, as much as you might hate him if you're in Cleveland, maybe it's worn off, maybe not, but he is, like, one of the reasons you don't like him is because obviously he's so good, but he's also so damn cool. Like, he's just a cool dude, right? And so it's like, okay, you know what he can do on the basketball floor, but then on top of it, well, what's going to set him apart? Oh, he's going to arrive 3 hours early, and he's going to shoot from 80 feet and make 57 out of 62. Like, that's ridiculous. Then he goes out, and he's a very good player, very good golfer, and he goes out and wins this tournament. Now, this isn't against PGA pros, but still, that's pretty impressive. Very impressive. Has an ace on a hole. Had a hole in one. I mean, think about that. He wins it with an eagle, but then before that has an ace. And his reaction, it reminded me of Sergio Garcia. It looked like old school. Do you remember Sergio Garcia, Bohm?
I know who Sergio is. I don't remember his ace that you're.
No, not ace. Just Sergio Garcia, the player. Like he was very when it was kind of him and Tiger, and really it wasn't him and Tiger, but
was he fiery?
He was fiery, and he was a guy like there's so many clips. One of his biggest highlights is he's hitting behind a tree, and he swings and he closes his eyes because like he doesn't. He's afraid he's going to get hit or whatever, and the ball comes out, and then he's like running, and then he's literally skipping down the fairway. And that's all I could think of when Steph Curry makes that beeline for the hole. But the other thing I'm thinking is, my God, life's pretty good if you're Steph Curry. And he was on one of the tee boxes. Somebody had a basketball hoop. Did you see that? He damn near made that with the behind the back. Or the with his back to the basket. Amazing.
But he did make the spot up shot though when he was
of course
back away from the basket.
Of course he did. I mean, you're talking about I don't think there's a better shooter in the history of the league. And I look,
he changed the game.
I'm not going to say Larry Bird and there were so many great shooters, but like Steph is. He's taken it to a whole new level. And you're right. The idea, forget about comparing him to anybody. The idea that it's like it made it cool. And what's funny is it's funny how this has gone down, Boom, because initially it was, this is great for basketball. Because now you got guys, instead of trying to dunk and all these crazy moves, and, you got guys shooting. Fundamentals, shooting is going to be. So then he perfects that. Now you've got kids that they want to shoot from 35 feet, and their mid-range game is non-existent. They don't go to the hole anymore. So now they're like, they used to say, man, thank God for Steph Curry. Now they're like, well, Steph Curry, for all the good he did, now nobody has a mid-range game. Nobody attacks the hoop. But he's incredible. I mean, I love him or hate him, and I get it around here, but he is absolutely incredible.
It's the range, Chico. It was unprecedented.
Yeah.
Just spotting up from that far behind the three-point line and consistently being so good at it, hitting it even when contested. And just like getting it off so quickly. Like he has one of the quickest releases I've seen out of a shooter.
It is.
But
it's nuts.
To your point, and I think you do raise an interesting point with the critique of in terms of the negative impact to the game. You can't say that he doesn't do that. He's not afraid to go into the hole.
Oh no, I'm not saying him. I'm saying that's the.
I guess it's just interesting that you're right. Like the most flashy part of his game is definitely the range, and that like people aren't, I guess, studying the full extent of his ability.
Yeah, because kids, they want to hit that long jump, but I mean, they also don't realize that for 2 hours before the game, he's got the two basketballs, and and his handle's incredible. I'd love to know. I'm really curious how long he's gonna play. Like I want to say, I mean, he's mid-30s. Maybe a little young. He's got to be.
Stand by.
20. Yeah. Thank you, Bo. I want to say like 20. I was going to say 2013, but even that seems a little.
He's 35.
35 years. When did he come into the league?
Stand by.
You got the bio right there.
I mean, we could do the math, but.
Well, no, you can just, or you can. No, forget it. It doesn't matter.
2009.
2009. Okay, yeah, it was longer than that. So 2009, he comes in at 35 years old. Because now, and this is what I was going to get into, now all of a sudden, and these are the arguments, these are the sports topics that happen when you're waiting for training camp, when people feel like your baseball team is done, when you're trying to act like you're excited about the Cavs Summer League championship game. So you make up the topic of, well, with Steph Curry's going to go play on the PGA Tour. Could he play on the and inevitably people, it's kind of like when people say, man, LeBron could play in the NFL. I mean, look, obviously he was an all-state wide receiver at St. Vincent St. Mary. A lot of people say, man, can you imagine him at safety? But I think sometimes with a lot, and particularly golf, like, I don't know if people truly understand how really difficult. Now, his game is incredible. His game is absolutely amazing, Steph Curry. So John Smoltz, very, very good. Tony Romo, very, very good. But, like, now, well, he could at least compete. He wouldn't embarrass himself. He would. I mean, okay, so if he retired, and the reason I bring this up, I think his contract runs through like another 3 years, so like age 38. He's going to be at that point. Does he want to be his buddy Klay Thompson and just a standalone shooter? Does he? But he might not. I mean, he might still be healthy enough to do whatever. But 38 years old, does he decide, you know what? I do want to give this golf thing a chance. I do want to get serious about this. I mean, a lot of guys, and we need to realize this, these professional athletes, a lot of these guys are very good. You know, they're very good in other sports. And when you watch like those the celebrity championships, I mean, it's the same names. For when I was growing up, it was Rick Rhoden. He was always in there, the pitcher. But now, like I said, you've got guys like Steph Curry. But I think people just automatically assume that, like, oh, Steph Curry could play on the PGA Tour. I don't know about that. I mean, and I like Steph, and I'm rooting for him, but come on.
So I had this on Fair or Foul, but I guess I'll just ask it now.
Yes.
So would you think it's fair to or unfair to say that Steph Curry would be the best candidate to be a two-sport athlete that plays golf?
They're currently playing in their sport?
Yes.
Yeah, easy. Because I can't, I mean, well, I don't know. I mean, how many football players are great basketball players? Probably a lot. Like, I'm thinking.
Yeah, a lot of them were two-sport athletes
of course.
In, like, high school.
Yeah, I mean, average 25, 30 a game. You know, like it was nobody's business.
JT Tuimoloau.
Yeah,
A top-ranked basketball recruit.
Remember Orlando Pace?
Yeah.
Which I still say is the most underrated and probably the most dominant Ohio State player I've ever seen in person. Like, he eliminated guys. Just not like, wow, he did a great job sealing off the edge. Like, the dude was wiped out of the play. Like, you watched the replay and it was like, so much for that guy. Like, it was man among boys. But he played for St. Now, he wasn't like D1, but he was an all-stater. I think he averaged like 18, 19 a game, obviously a ton of rebounds, but like, imagine that guy at that size being able to handle and get up and down the floor, which he could. Who wants to match up with that? Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody.
And maybe the greatest lineman of all time, right up there with like the Jonathan Ogdens of the world.
Yeah.
But certainly I think, and you would know better than I would, but I think probably the greatest O-lineman in Ohio State's history.
I would say, yeah, and like I said, I've had this discussion on shows in the past, and I feel like he always gets overlooked, and I get it because he's an O-lineman, right? You immediately, as soon as you think about dominant players, well, you're going to the guys that won Heisman, so you're going to bring up, Eddie George, you're going to bring up Archie Griffin, you're going to bring up Troy Smith, you're going to bring up, all kinds of great players and a ton of great defensive players too. But like Orlando Pace, if you just want to talk about like who dominated his opponent more so than anybody else on the field. It was week after week after week. Think about it. Dick Vermeil was in the booth when Orlando Pace was at Ohio State, and he got to call a lot of his games. Who was his first? He knew. He's like, this guy is – and he did the same thing, not to that level, but he pretty much did the same thing in the pros too. Like, he just – but in college, it was so – you felt so bad for that guy next. They kept track of those pancakes, the actual pancakes, and he had like 3 every game.
That's absurd.
Yeah. He just – go – if you look at video of Orlando Pace, like just look at him just destroying guys.
Orlando Pace highlights.
Just erased guys. Like, it's almost like he reached out, put them in his mouth, swallowed them, and that was it. Where's that guy? He's done. Yeah,
he ate him up.
He won't.
He's demolished.
He won't be in on this play. No.
Completely discombobulated.
Crazy stuff. All right, 216-626-7901, 216-626-7901. Zach Meisel from The Athletic joining us top of the hour as the Guardians reeling a bit, not only from a sweep at the hands of the Texas Rangers, but also the news, which, believe it or not, is considered probably the best news you could get on Shane Bieber. They're going to go the non-surgery route. I wonder if they say this all the time, though, for the most part. Unless it is clear, like there's an absolute tear and there's no, like, because you always say, like, well, let's err on the side of, hey, maybe it'll get better without. But it sounds like right away they said, no, we're just going to give him some rest. He might be okay. But obviously a lot to discuss with the Guardians, where they go from here, and what to do next, and what is that plan now for Mike Chernoff and Chris Antonetti. So we'll deal with that a little bit later. Also over the weekend, DeAndre Hopkins found a new home, finally. I hope everybody's okay, those of you that really, really want. 2 years and $26 million, I think? 2 years, 26, and I think it can be with incentives $32 million.
Wow, so you could have gotten him for less than OBJ. I just think it's so interesting.
Per year.
Yeah.
Yeah. When people say you could have gotten him for OBJ, for the same as OBJ, you can't. No, because he wanted a 2-year deal.
At the time, he wanted more, too.
Oh, sure he did.
But I think, yeah, I mean, OBJ,
he realized there was no. I mean, okay,
he lost some leverage throughout the process.
This one's pretty easy to figure out. It doesn't take, there's no calculus involved. There's no algorithms. There's no. He went to the highest bidder, and we've been saying that for a while. And I understood in the beginning it was, well, you really got to vet. And I think about that. Deshaun Watson is he's campaigning for him. All he was saying was, yeah, I'd really love to have him. That didn't mean anything. I mean, it did and it didn't. Ultimately, though, he wanted paid, and that's what people needed to understand. He wasn't going to take less to play with his buddy Deshaun Watson, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's what people don't get a lot of times is, yes, those guys, they want to win, and yes, they want a situation. If you can reunite me with my former QB and we played great together, and yes, let's do it. But I'm not going to take that much less money, and he was never going to do it. This Titans fan on Twitter, he was hilarious. He was like all excited, and I didn't want to rain in his parade, but he's all excited. No, DeAndre Hopkins, they need somebody. Like the Patriots need somebody. Like if you need somebody and you have nobody, and that's not the case for the Browns, if you have nobody, then yeah, you better be courting DeAndre Hopkins. I would love to know, I've said this many times about Mike Vrabel, and you know this. Behind closed doors, he's got to be like, we had a pretty good wide receiver in A.J. Brown. Not quite sure why we traded him away. Now we bring in DeAndre Hopkins. And I know there's history with him in Houston, and hopefully they get along great, but you don't know. I mean, Vrabel's a no-nonsense guy. And if D-Hop comes in there and he's not practicing and he's taking, that ain't going to sit well. But I digress. So this guy is just like he's going nuts. He's like, yes. And he's like, the thing is, like, the Chiefs could have had him too. if they would have just waited it out and restructured, got the thing situated with Chris Jones or Frank Clark and all that, and got their and I tweeted him back. I'm like, wait a minute. Are you saying that the Chiefs would have given him 2 years and $26 million? He's like, yeah, if they would have just waited. No. No. They weren't going to give him a 2-year deal, and they sure as hell weren't going to make it for 26. 13 they were laughing at. That was going to be, we heard from Carrington Harrison, that was going to be about a $6, maybe $7 million a year deal. But I didn't want to rain on his parade too hard. He was like, oh, then he saw my handle, and he's like, oh, yeah, the frustrated Browns fan. Oh, this is funny, talking about franchise quarterbacks. Because remember when Hopkins said he wants to play for I don't know. I don't even know how he worded it. But the Titans fan, because people were kind of clapping back about, wow, at least he got that great quarterback to play for. And this Titans fan is like, no. All he said was he wanted to play with a quarterback that loves the game. I'm like, no, it was more than just loves the game. I'm sure there's a lot of quarterbacks out there that love the game. It was a top-flight quarterback, and Ryan Tannehill's okay. But so this guy's like, no, that's not what if you go back, DeAndre Hopkins always said he just wanted to play with a quarterback that loves the game. No, he didn't. But make yourself feel better. Make yourself feel better. That's important. So DeAndre Hopkins is no longer on the market. Sorry, Padone. You think Padone kind of went away weeping just a little bit? A little sad?
I'm sure there's definitely some disappointment sprinkled into whatever.
He was calling for that since December.
Yeah.
Like, I remember talking about it. Here you go. This show here on Big Play started on March the 17th, St. Patrick's Day. And I remember, like, that show or the day after, he was referencing D-Hop then and talking about, I've been calling for this since December. So then when the news did kind of start to come out, when Arizona cut him and they just let him loose and he was free, he was fair game for everybody. Man, Padone, he lost his mind. He was like, yes, it's going to happen. Look, Deshaun's campaigning for him. They're not going to want to disappoint him. Like, I'd hold my horses just a little bit. Anyway, he ends up with Tennessee. Wah, wah. All right, so we will take a break. When we come back, we got a little fair or foul. Top of the hour, Zach Meisel. Not a good weekend for the Guardians. I don't care how you try to explain it away. Yes, Texas, great team, one of the best in baseball. Could be representing the American League come October. Who knows? But they got swept. Shane Bieber on the IL. Trevor Stephan, just when you think you might be over some of those trials and tribulations, he gets bombed in that game. They had a late lead. He blew it. So we'll talk to Zach about all of that and then some coming up top of the hour. Coming up next, it is time for a bombastic version of Fair or Foul on this Monday edition of the Chico Bormann Show. It's all live right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Alrighty, welcome back. Hazy, terrible air quality day. 159 last we checked. So be careful out there. Maybe some people, I saw a few people wearing masks. That's some people have respiratory issues, and certainly take care of yourself. But yes, be careful. All right, we are here on this Monday. We'll be talking some Guardians baseball, top of the hour. Zach Meisel from The Athletic. Whew. Not that everything was going great, but after this weekend, it really kind of... So we'll talk to Zach about everything troubling the Guardians right now as they get ready for the Pittsburgh Pirates, which I think is the most beautiful ballpark in all of baseball. I admit that I haven't seen and been to every single park. You get the Pirates, you get PNC Park lit up at night. It's incredible. And I know it's Pittsburgh, and I know I'm not supposed to, but it is just the Clemente Bridge lit up. It is absolutely phenomenal. So we'll talk to Zach here in a little bit. But right now, Bombastic is... Why are you're grinning before we even begin, Bohm? What's going on? It's fair or foul time, but Bohm feels like he's got a little trick up his sleeve.
Well, before I commence with that, I would just like to say that I think it's fair to feel differently about the Pittsburgh Pirates than the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, they're not even in the same conference.
Well, but
they hardly. I mean, they see each other every year, but
it's not the Pirates. It's just Pittsburgh for people.
Yeah, I guess so. But
people.
I don't know. I don't look down upon the Pirates like I do the Steelers.
Well, I'm sure the Pirates appreciate that, Bohm.
Yeah, and plus you mentioned there's a lot of endearingness to that club. I mean, that ballpark is gorgeous.
Endearingness. I like that. Yeah, at night it is. At nights it's truly endearing.
Behold.
At night it is truly endearing. But yes, it is gorgeous. I think it's the most beautiful ballpark in baseball, but I haven't been to every single one.
Okay,
Anyway,
well, let us commence, Chico, because I was reading a little bit of Mary Kay Cabot in the Plain Dealer. Shout out MKC, hashtag get mommy a beer. But so she was talking about Donovan Peoples-Jones, right, and how so far in his career, his numbers have continued to increase, and she expects them to continue on that trajectory. Now, the Browns receiver room this year feels a little bit more crowded. Obviously, you bring Elijah Moore into the fold. You draft Cedric Tillman. You've also got Marquise Goodwin. And Njoku, have to think he's going to probably be on an upward trajectory. So MKC thinks that Donovan Peoples-Jones will surpass his receiving yards total of 839 yards next season. Fair or foul, you think that he does?
Well, I've got no reason to doubt Mary Kay. The guy, I'll tell you who I don't think, and it doesn't mean he's going to have a bad year, but like Deshaun Watson, at least if you go back to, and I was looking this up, if you go back to his days in Houston, he didn't really seek out the tight end a whole lot. So, and now Njoku is an athletic guy, and he's getting up the seam and whatever. But I'm going to say yes, although like everything, people need to understand that some guys, hopefully with this many mouths to feed, that he's able to feed all of them. And if that means that somebody doesn't absolutely just have an incredible, knock your socks off type season, it's okay. But Donovan Peoples-Jones seems to be ready to take that step, and now ready to take that step with a guy that, he's familiar with more. I know I keep harping on this, but the full off season for everybody, but I think for a guy like Donovan Peoples-Jones, especially when you're talking about a guy who, high points the ball very well, catches it in traffic very well. Like sometimes that's just an understanding between quarterback and receiver that when you have that communication, when you have that rhythm, it can work. But I'll go with fair on that.
For me, that's a hard bet to make, because I do think that guys like Elijah Moore are going to command a lot of targets.
Okay, how many yards did he have last year?
839.
So if he has 840,
it's doable for sure, and I think that it's a milestone that he really wants to reach, and he's entering a contract year. MKC did mention, so I think there's a little added incentive in that regard.
Right.
So I do think he can get there. And I don't think that it'll necessarily be the result of like poor play or anything, but I'm pessimistic about him surpassing that total.
I don't think Njoku's going to be as targeted as maybe we think. That's just my guess.
You also bring in another tight end who Deshaun has some familiarity with in Akins, Jordan Akins.
Right.
So he certainly could command some of that load as well.
But he didn't. I guess what I'm saying is he didn't really target the tight end a whole lot. He is familiar with him, but he didn't really target a whole lot in Houston. Maybe it'll be different in Cleveland. Who knows? But DPJ. Everybody loves DPJ.
Yeah, I do love DPJ.
He's a
Despite
Wolverine.
where he went to college.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bohm, you hold that bias.
You know what? To Urban Meyer, that was the one that got away. I was listening to an interview with him. He thought he had him locked up. He thought he was coming to Ohio State, and he made a last-second decision to stay up north. And Urban Meyer talked about that was one of his biggest recruiting regrets.
Somewhere, Bohm was on a bus to Long Island at like 3 a.m.
Train.
Train, and going to one of his gigs, and he's like, I pop in this Urban Meyer podcast and hear who's the one that got away, and it was.
As a matter of fact, I was walking the dog when I was listening.
All right.
Strolling through the park. I remember the moment I heard it. Whoa.
That's a pretty big moment, Bo.
It was.
You got to get
hell of a nugget.
You got to get some bigger moments in your life. If that's one that you're like, oh, where were you when? Like, people are like, where were you when certain events happened? Some not so great. Bohm's like, where were you when you first heard that Urban Meyer said that Donovan Peoples-Jones was the one that got away? And everybody's going to look at him at those dinner parties like, why are you sweating so much?
It was a memorable tidbit, Chico. What can I say?
Yes, absolutely.
Anyways, on the other side of the ball, Mary Kay Cabot talked about in her Cleveland.com article, Hey Mary Kay, where people will ask her questions. She talked about Myles Garrett. That was way too much detail.
No,
Sorry.
it was good. It was just you just took a long route to get there, but that's all right. Yeah,
I didn't.
Hey Mary Kay is where they ask questions.
I will not dispute such claims.
Hey Mary Kay, what do you think about? We got to have Mary Kay on again. I love talking
totally.
to Mary Kay. Awesome.
Yeah, she was awesome. Anyway, so she was talking about Myles Garrett and how similar question here, Chico. Myles had 16 sacks the past 2 seasons. Now, you bring in a lot more talent on that defensive line, which you feel like can only help Myles. Obviously, Jim Schwartz, who we have talked about in the past, plays his guys a little bit differently, really relies on that rotation. So while you may see less total snaps from Myles, he may make them count more. With all of that said, fair or foul, Myles will have more than 16 sacks this season.
See, this one is a much tougher bet, and again, it has nothing to do with Myles and I love what Jim Schwartz is planning on doing. I love the fact, and again, if you go back to the Philadelphia days when they won, like, that was a staple on that defense, was that front seven, come fourth quarter, everybody, like, they were well rested, and his studs that he wanted to be studs late in the game that you're making. I mean, there's a reason you're paying Myles Garrett $25 million a year, right? Myles Garrett is incredible. Just a very unique talent, but you want those guys to show up in big situations. And he has in the past, but I think under Schwartz, it sounds like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to be very cognizant of making sure that he is part of the rotation, but so instead of 16 sacks, we say, will he break 16 sacks? How about how many impactful sacks will he have in the fourth quarter of games, close games? I think that, and he's already has a lot, I mean, in his career, but I think that number is going to spike, and that's probably the most important number.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a higher rate of sacks per snap.
I mean,
if
imagine
that's
him
to keep track of.
fresh against offensive linemen in the fourth quarter who are dead tired. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
That's taking a weapon to another level.
Yes,
certainly.
Bo, I thought you were going to say taking candy from a baby, but you went to weapon. So, all right.
Yes. Well, anyways, sticking with the NFL, but moving on from the Browns. Warren Sharp, great stat guy.
Yes.
Big gambling guy. Shout out Tipico. So he was talking about how total touchdowns for quarterbacks prior to turning 24 years old, right? So Patrick Mahomes is at 59. Matthew Stafford had 63. For reference, Cam Newton at 62. Kyler Murray at 61. Marino had 70. Now, Justin Herbert, 77, which I think is really impressive, along with Jameis Winston also had 77, which is kind of surprising to me. I know he threw a lot of picks. But,
I was going to say, he had 77 interceptions, too.
Yeah, right. But standing alone at 87, Chico, is Lamar Jackson. And obviously when you factor in, not just passing touchdowns, but rushing touchdowns, one of the most effective rushers in the NFL right now in Jackson. That being said, I certainly think there are injury concerns with him, obviously not finishing last season. Fair or foul, Chico? Lamar Jackson has more total touchdowns in 2023 than Patrick Mahomes. Is that a bet that you would make with Tipico?
Foul. No, I mean, for you, as soon you could have said Lamar Jackson will. I don't even know. Will win more video games than Patrick. I mean, as soon as you put Patrick Mahomes in the equation, I'm not gonna. Now, here's the thing, and this one of the fascinating storylines, and it really is, and okay, Lamar Jackson is signed and he's ready to go, and they brought in OBJ, and they're trying to, as they seemingly have been for years, trying to upgrade the perimeter wide receivers, and Monken, he's going to go down the field. But you can't, my personal opinion is you can't just go away from him. Like you mentioned those touchdowns and how many of those were rushing, and that's what he does. I'm not saying he's not as bad a passer as we want to make him out to be, but I also think there are some that go, he just doesn't pass enough. You wouldn't know. He's not that great. As far as pushing it downfield, he's not that great. So, I mean, I'm curious to see how Todd Monken and Lamar Jackson mesh. Like, to me, that's one of the top 5 storylines in football because that's a very good team, usually year in and year out. And how that ends up going and how quickly, he's able to adapt if there isn't a adapting process for him. I don't know. I feel like Lamar Jackson is such an incredible talent, but you're right. Boom, the most important stat, we were just talking about Myles Garrett, right? Talking about sacks and talking about, impact sacks in the fourth quarter. Well, let's talk about the fourth quarter of the season. Fourth quarter of the season, Lamar Jackson's nowhere to be found. He's missing, I think, last 4 games the last 2 years. Like, no, that's not what you're – and I understand, like, hey, that's part of the game and whatever, but your money guy's got to be on the field in money time. And if he's not, that's going to be a problem. So that's why I say I think it is one of the more fascinating storylines is how Todd Monken and Lamar Jackson make this work in Baltimore. I'm curious.
Yeah, Chico. And now, if I were given the guarantee that Lamar Jackson would play all 17 games, I think I would take that bet.
I would.
Yeah, I think he's going to score more overall than Patty.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Of course, that's a guarantee that you will never receive and certainly could never expect. Regardless, moving forth.
I'm just glad he didn't say irregardless.
You know what? Yeah. I almost did. I wanted to because I know it's not a real word.
Irregardless sounds like a word Dave McAllister would use. I don't know why.
It's redundant. It's like using utilize instead of use.
Shout out to Warden McAllister, by the way.
Yeah, still not letting the light in for us, Chico. A bit disappointing if I do say so myself.
Said he was going to hike up the temperature.
I thought we could have at least had a couple inches removed by this point.
Because his flight was delayed yesterday. He was really bummed out about that.
Shame.
And I just replied, karma. And then he replied, I hope that temperature goes up just a few degrees.
He's just asking for more bad karma.
He is. Yeah, he is. He doesn't realize it. But.
All right, Chico. Well, last one here because we're kind of up against it before we get to Zach Meisel. Tyreek Hill was on a podcast over the weekend on the Cheetah podcast, and he said he guaranteed that he would surpass 2,000 yards this season, Chico. Now, Tyreek Hill, I know Justin Jefferson, I know you think is the best. Some might make the case that Tyreek Hill is the best, But fair or foul, you think he passes that 2,000-yard mark?
Well, okay, I'm going to go back to what you said about Lamar Jackson, and we'll use it with Tua Tagovailoa. How many games is Tua Tagovailoa going to play? If he plays a full season, I think Tyreek Hill could approach that. Now, he's going to be sharing the wealth a little bit. Jalen Waddle, man, that guy can absolutely fly, but he does tend to get, overlooked, as you can imagine, with Tyreek Hill, who is just, you always have to know where that guy is. 2,000 is when's the last time somebody had 2,000 yards?
Good question.
Devontae? I don't even know.
Did Jefferson get there?
I don't think Jefferson I think he got 1,900. Anyway, it is a very lofty mark. And even if you said, well, the quarterback's durable and he's, then it's still really, really lofty. What do you got?
So no player has ever surpassed 2,000 receiving yards. The record holder for one season, however, is Megatron, Calvin Johnson, with 1,964.
I thought Jerry Rice had a 2,000 yard. Maybe not. No, obviously not. So your boy, Megatron.
Yeah, baby.
All right.
Top 5 receiver all time.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I have to go foul on that, but I would say this. If Tua Tagovailoa, if you knew that he was going to play 17 games and be Tua Tagovailoa, it would give me pause. Because he's going to be targeted a lot, obviously, but the yak. Boom. The yak. You know what the yak is? Yards after catch. They love the yak. And Tyreek Hill has plenty of yak. You know what rhymes with yak? Boom.
Does it start with a Z?
Zach. Zach also has plenty of yak. All right, that's fair or foul on this Monday. I'm not going to make it. I would break for a couple minutes and then get him set up, but he's doing us such a solid. It's great. See, this is the beauty of Meisel. This is the gamesmanship, we'll call it, that goes on between Zach and I. Off air, or I should say, just even texting. Like, I was at a game recently, and I forget who it was. Got pulled for I think it was Jimenez, and I'm like, hey Zach, because I know he's up in the press box and he's focused in, laser focused, and I said, do you know what's going on with him? And he's like, well, apparently he's distraught that he's not going to be able to listen to the Chico Bormann show. And something stupid like that. And I'm like, all right, Zach, can you just give me the damn report on him and just be done with it? You can't. All right. With that, let's bring him in. I'm sure 10-2 on the wheel as he is barreling down. What is he? I-79? Is he at? Where are you at right now out there? Zach Meisel from The Athletic, covering the Guardians, and right now getting set to cover the Guardians and the Pirates for 3 games. What's up, Zach?
Chico, what is going on? I felt like I owed you one because last time we were together on your show, I think my phone died toward the end of the interview.
You know what the best part of that was? Yeah, you guys were in the Mall of America in Minnesota, and all of a sudden, I get a text from Mandy. Mandy Bell's like, Zach's really sorry, but his phone died. I'm like, it's okay. It's not that big of a deal. Although I knew that I could use that against you and say, yeah, that's how you are. You're kind of like Bob Knight. Bob Knight would never finish a press conference. He'd just be like, all right, I'm done. And that's it. He walked off. So I pictured you doing that in the Mall of America.
Yeah. You always ask those questions that I don't want to answer.
The most beautiful ballpark. Here's another one. The most beautiful ballpark in baseball, I say, even though I know it's frowned upon here, PNC Park lit up at night, and full disclosure, I've not been to every single park in baseball, but a few. I think PNC Park lit up at night with that backdrop, Clemente Bridge lit up, I think is the most beautiful sight in baseball. What do you got?
Yeah, it's probably number one. I'm thinking like San Francisco's up there.
Yeah.
There is something special about Fenway, I think, when there's like, especially if there's a big game feel to it. Those are probably my top three, I would say.
Okay. That's good. Yeah, I like that you have one that's in there simply because it's, it's vintage. You know what I mean? Like it's Fenway. So you got like a Fenway or a Wrigley or something like that. By the way, what do you think of Wrigley? Do you like Wrigley? Because I feel like with Wrigley, some people are like, oh, I absolutely love it. And then, oh, have you been to Wrigley? Yeah, I hated it. Like, what do you think?
I mean, from a working standpoint, it's a pain. So it's definitely toward the bottom in terms of that. But I don't know. I think the thing I appreciate about Fenway is they've done a good job preserving the history and also modernizing it. I think they've done a better job with Wrigley in that domain in recent years. But I mean, I feel like I always hear fans saying that, they bought tickets, they drove 5.5 hours to go see their team at Wrigley, and what do you know? They're sitting behind a cement pillar and they have no view.
Sounds like the old stadium.
So that still exists. Yeah. So I like Wrigley. It's cool. I mean, it was nice. We had that Friday day game a few weeks ago, which, no one else does that. Like, that's kind of cool. It's just, there's a charm to it, but it's not my favorite.
Okay. Zach Meisel from The Athletic joining us, covering the Cleveland Guardians. I feel like what I'm doing right now, Bohm, you're kind of looking at me like, how I feel like we're at Pomodoro, Seinfeld reference. And like in Seinfeld, everybody goes to Pomodoro to break up. But I feel like we're trying to avoid the real conversation. So let's not talk about that the Guardians got swept by Texas or that Bieber's on the IL. Let's just talk about beautiful ballparks and just, that's really all that's going on. All right, Zach, here we go. Let's get right into it. So Thursday's column, because I am a ferocious reader of the Zach Meisel column. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but I take it in as much as I can. Thursday's column, you were looking at the positives from the first half because there were plenty of negatives and plenty of injuries and all that. You said, you know what? This is going to be, you termed it, the Cleveland Guardians of Eden, where cynicism goes to perish. You write that column on Thursday. Here we are on Monday. They've been swept by Texas, and Bieber is on the IL. Explain yourself, Meisel.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the first half, like they played better the last few weeks of that first half, right? There's no doubt about that. I think people felt better about their situation going into the All-Star break. But let's be real, like the first half has been defined by this team's inability to hit for any power. It's been defined by starting pitching injuries, and it's been defined by a bullpen that somehow led the league in ERA going into the All-Star break. But I mean, if you really boil it down, they just implode at the worst possible moments over and over and over again. It's been a first half where every loss, every gut-wrenching defeat where you're like, how did they just melt down in this fashion? How did they find a way to lose? Every game like that is worse than the previous one, and they keep stooping to new lows. And I just thought, let's just have one day, one column where we just put all that aside and examine how Eli Morgan had a great first half, how Aaron Savali got healthy and looked like a frontline starter, how Josh Naylor has blossomed. And we had that one day, we had that one piece, and that was it, because we're right back to what's happened nonstop for the first 3.5 months of the season. And it's the same stuff. It's the same potholes that you're driving your car into, and you're not asking the city to fix them, and you're not swerving around them. You just keep driving into them. It's the same Miles Straw batting in the 9th inning with the bases loaded and nobody out down a run. It's the same Ahmed Rosario starting 7 days a week, even though he's the worst defender in baseball. It's the same stuff plaguing them day in and day out. It's the bullpen. Trevor Stephan, boy, when he doesn't have it, he doesn't have it to such an extreme degree that you can't even protect a 3-run lead. It's things like that. It's Class A giving up runs when the team's up 1 instead of when he's getting work in and they're up 4. It's things like that. And it's made it for, I mean, I don't know about you, Chico, but like judging by social media and my mentions and my email and comments and, my neighbors, it's like the frustration and the vitriol and the just displeasure I think the fan base has taken in this team through 93 games it's jarring, and I understand it. And it seems like it's just been miserable to watch. I mean, even from my standpoint, I'm like, God, this is brutal.
Yeah, it's funny. I mentioned that in the first hour that this one, and I don't know if it's because, hey, they're, still waiting for training camp to begin and for the Browns to get going. And, well, the Cavs Summer League championship game tonight isn't enough to get. But this sweep by Texas, and not just the sweep, but like you mentioned, Stephen, and, yeah, just when you think, and, I mean, even go back to that with Bieber, like just when you think, okay, hey, either he's going to get dealt, and I know you wrote about this today, either he's going to get dealt and you're going to get some reinforcement, hopefully a controllable bat maybe for a while and maybe some other guys, or you're going to keep him and he's going to rebound and be that ace that you need to anchor the rotation the rest of the way. Oh wait, there's another scenario, and that is that he's on the injured list. And I guess let's go to that. I guess it's best case scenario in terms of they're going to shut him down. I always feel like they always say that, though, unless there's just an outright tear, that they're going to shut him down for 2 weeks and then reevaluate. But, I mean, it's horrible news on top of horrible news. And then the plan you thought, or we thought that the Guardians would have for Bieber, well, throw in another scenario. It's amazing.
Nothing's gone according to plan. And maybe the plan was faulty from the get-go, but this is not the script that they were hoping would unfold here. And you could have, the decision was you either trade Bieber to address your needs on offense and help your team, not just this year, but next year. The way that they've traded Trevor Bauer and Mike Clevenger and Corey Kluber in the past, where you get some immediate help, but you get some future help too. And you're trading from a surplus to address a deficiency on your roster. Like, that was one very realistic option. And the other, as you mentioned, was, well, you got a rookie-filled rotation. These guys are on innings limits. Let's have, especially with McKenzie's sideline, let's have Bieber just be the ace who guides this team to the finish line, and then you reevaluate and trade him over the winter. And now I'm not sure either of those is a possibility. If you're going to trade him before the trade deadline, you're going to have a team that doesn't mind the injury risk. And that's really tough to pull off for a couple of reasons. Number one, there was already skepticism around the league about Bieber's true value because he's not the same pitcher that he used to be for a variety of reasons. Now, maybe some of that is explained by this injury, but that's for another team to figure out. And the other thing is, we know this front office does not sell low. They don't settle. They make trade demands. They say, this is our price, meet us at this price, or we're not making this deal. Otherwise, they would have traded Francisco Lindor a year earlier than they did. They would have traded Corey Kluber a year earlier than they did. So you're not going to get a team that's desperately willing to overpay for Shane Bieber as it was. And then now with the injury on top of it, that's just not going to happen. So if you're going to trade Shane Bieber by August 1st, you're going to have to settle. And that's a decision they have to make based on the knowledge they have of his elbow and what they think they could get for him this winter if he does return and show he's healthy again, or if that doesn't happen. So it's a really convoluted situation. It's just so far from the ideal scenario. And, oh, by the way, your rotation now is Aaron Savali, 3 rookies, and a bullpen spot.
Wow.
How are you going to get through even the next few weeks with that? So it's a complete mess.
He is Zach Meisel covering the Guardians for The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter at Zach Meisel. Also has a book out for those of you that are really frustrated and you're saying, gosh, I need something to feel good about. Go get his book, Cleveland Rocked on the 95 Tribe. Those were some great times. They didn't have any problem. They never really had any issues with, gee, I wonder if we're going to get any production out of our corner outfielders. No, Albert and Manny, they took care of that. But that was then. This is now. Hey, by the way, also check him out on the podcast along with our good buddy TJ Zuppe. Selby is Godcast, so you can check that out as well. All right, so your Chernoff and your Antonetti, Zach, and you know this as well as anyone. Every general manager approaching the deadline, which for those that don't know is August 1st. You have to take that real long, hard look in the mirror and the honest hard look in the mirror and say, okay, I know the division is seemingly, I'm using air quotes here, you can't see it, up for grabs. We're 2.5 games back in Minnesota. And, who knows? We could get Bieber back healthy, and we could do this, could do that. But you have to make that evaluation and really, truly be honest about who you are this year, where you are this year. And as any general manager knows, I mean, you're also thinking, especially in a market like this, we got to be thinking about next year and beyond too. So with that said, and forgetting about the division and 2.5 games and all of that, or maybe you can factor that in, whatever you want to do. Do you look at that and say, you know what? It's just this just isn't our year. We don't know how else to say it. Just not our year.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to ignore the state of the division, because the point is you need to build as formidable a roster as possible to win a World Series. I mean, it's been 75 years. Like, what? Let some of these people who are entering their 70s see a title before they go, right? So you have to build the best roster you can, and that has to be independent of, the division is strong this year, the division is weak this year. It doesn't matter. So I think you have to gear your decision-making toward 24, because you could add a rental, Cody Bellinger or a pitcher or something, but is that the difference between what you are right now and a World Series team? I don't think so. So if I'm them, any decision I make is keeping 2024 in mind, probably more so than 2023, because people want to look at, are they a buyer, are they a seller? That it doesn't matter. I mean, they don't really have anything to sell. If someone wants 2 months of Ahmed Rosario, fine, but that's really it. This team is so young and inexperienced that they don't have the traditional veterans to trade if you're deciding that you're bailing on 2023. So they don't really have a choice but to stay in this especially in this division. So I wouldn't even worry about that. It's more so just, how do you position yourself to be as good as possible, to flush this season and just be in position to actually be a formidable World Series contender next year? I think there are ways to do that. The Bieber trade is going to have to be the biggest decision that factors into it. But, you have to figure out you have to learn as much as possible about these young players. And I feel like that we've just gained no knowledge about Tyler Freeman or Gabriel Arias or Will Brennan or Oscar Gonzalez or Brian Rocchio. And there's a logjam there. We need to know more about Bo Naylor. Can he catch 130 games next season and be an everyday player? You need to know that. So I think they have so many questions to answer that are more important than just going all out to try to win the division in 2023. Because if you win the division with 81, 82 wins, okay, are you a formidable World Series contender? I don't think so. Not from what I've seen in the first 93 games. And I don't think you're a couple quick fixes away from it. So I think there are some pretty substantial changes that need to be made, but more so it's just tweaking the roster in enough ways to make 2024 look as bright as this season was supposed to.
Zach, I'm glad you mentioned the logjam with the middle infielders, especially because I think somebody's sitting here going, you know what? Wait, aren't they going to? We keep hearing about they're going to have to trade some of these guys. They can't keep them all, but to that end, like you said, who have they seen enough from any one player to know? Okay, we absolutely. I think I put Justin Ladd on the spot one day, and I said, Freeman, Rocchio, or Arias, and I think he said, Rocchio is the one that kind of intrigues him the most. But I don't know, anybody wanting to see a trade of some of those guys just for no other reason but to end the logjam, it doesn't feel like that's going to happen by August 1 either.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to people in the organization 2 years ago who admitted that they needed to make a trade and consolidate some of that prospect talent, and they still haven't done it. So it's only more difficult now because, like, Gabriel Arias certainly doesn't have as much trade value as he did a year or two ago. Tyler Freeman, the same thing. So you're resigned to playing these guys and learning more about them and maybe letting them build back up their trade value or letting them just succeed for you or failing, and then at least you learned about them. But we've already seen, they traded away Nolan Jones and Will Benson to clear some space, and, well, those guys are thriving elsewhere. So, yeah, they're just going to have to make the right decisions and pull the right levers. And, when you match up on a trade with someone, that's the toughest thing. It's like people always ask, they're like, oh, this team made this trade. Well, why couldn't we have done that? And, every team evaluates young players differently. You have to find a team that believes in some of your young players more than you do. But you have to do that before you've kind of hung them out to dry and not, Gabriel Arias is like, what is he right now? Is another team going to overpay for him? I don't think so. So they've put themselves in a really tough spot. I do wonder what steps they would have taken differently if they could go back in time a year or two, but this has not been pretty, and they've got a lot of really difficult decisions to make.
Does young Charlie Meisel or his innings going up, they stretching him out a little bit? Could he be a possibility here, August, September?
He never gets tired, let me tell you.
Is he at the terrible twos now? Am I right about that?
No, he's 14 months today, and he's actually, I say he never gets tired, but he's slept through this whole interview. He's coming to PNC Park, so I guess that says more about you and me and how interesting we are to listen to.
Well, me especially. Today's Charlie's birthday?
No. 14 months. There's 12 months in a year.
Oh man, I missed that part. Boom, cut that because I know I'm gonna get killed for that. And if I'm going to get killed for something, of course it's going to be when I have an interview with Meisel. All right, Zach, we appreciate the time. The time as always. By the way, I liked how you compared some of the issues to potholes today in Cleveland. And you just keep running over them. But I also liked that the elbow injury for Shane Bieber or Tristan McKenzie, it's akin to the middle finger injury for someone with road rage, which I'm sure you don't have any, or you shouldn't have any, especially with your young child in the car driving to Pittsburgh right now.
I wouldn't know anything about that. I've got the cruise control on the speed limit, and anyone can pass me. I'm happy with it.
10-2 on the wheel.
Very patient driver.
By the way,
2 hands on the wheel, third hand on the phone.
Before I get out of here, I just want to point out that this is what I mean, folks. On the auto screen, which is it's tough to navigate, but Zach called into the show, which we appreciate, and it kind of gets, hey, what's the reason for your call? It says Zach, and he's just grateful for the opportunity to talk to someone as talented as Chico Bormann. That sums up Zach Meisel, kids, right there. Zach, have fun in Pittsburgh, and young Charlie's going to be there to enjoy it and take it all in as well. Great stuff. We'll see how this thing plays out closer to the deadline and whatnot, but it is always, my friend, always a pleasure to touch base. Thank you, buddy.
You got it, buddy. Take care.
All right. That is Zach Meisel again joining us en route to Pittsburgh. I still can't get over the pothole. We got to cut that. I love that.
I did mark that one. I missed the middle finger one. Was that when you guys were talking about Shane Bieber's trade value?
No. He wrote that in his article today.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's amazing.
He was saying how, basically it was what's the what to do now, and he was talking about the injury, and he said, obviously for teams that were interested, they were already kind of devaluing him, and we've talked about this, and kind of lowballing the Guardians because velocity's been down, and not the same guy that he was a couple of years ago. Well, now this happens, and it's an elbow on top of it. And Zach wrote, and for those of you wondering, yes, the elbow injury to a pitcher is akin to the middle finger injury for someone with road rage.
Like those Guinness commercials, Chico. Brilliant.
Yeah, great. Nice job. Xavier Curry is going to take on Quinn Priester tonight. One of the certainly one of the more ballyhooed matchups in baseball. Quinn Priester's making his debut for the Pirates. Derek Shelton is the head coach, the manager. I forgot him. College.
He's
pros.
Basically the head coach.
Yeah. He's. You trying to say Pittsburgh's a college team?
I mean, manage, coach. What's the difference at the end of the day?
I'll tell you what, remember when the Pirates got off to a really hot start? Like, they were the talk of April. Now, you'd rather be the talk of, like, September or certainly October, but for the Pirates, that's good. The one thing I would like to know, and not necessarily a question for Zach, but, like, Brian Reynolds, for Pirates fans, I'd love to know. Brian Reynolds signed that extension. He got off to a really good start, too, which was probably not a coincidence. There's their good start, his good start. Signed the extension, which you don't get from Bob Nutting. Bob Nutting is one of the cheap. You guys think that Dolan's cheap, and you guys rail on Paul Dolan. Bob Nutting, boom, easy. Bob Nutting will not give you a dime. And he decided, I don't know. He just woke up in a good mood. I don't know what happened. But he decided, all right, I'm going to extend Brian Reynolds. Since then, Brian Reynolds really hasn't done a whole hell of a lot. Like, I want to say he had like 6 home runs in the month of April, and then now he's got like 8. Not good. But Guardians, what can you do? You got to just play through it. As Zach said, there's really not a whole lot they can do. You can only do so much when the big trade chip is now on the IL and is going to be down for the next couple of weeks, and you just don't know. So they're kind of left in, as I said earlier, it's kind of no man's land. But one of the things that he emphasized, and we're going to talk about this when we come back, one of the things he emphasized was, have they failed this year at getting a good look at some of these youngsters? Like last year, they were praised, and deservedly so, for going out and saying, all right, no more Bradley Zimmer, no more Bobby Bradley. We're going to see Stephen Kwan, and we're going to, and all these guys like got their playing time and they flourished. Now, okay, Kwan, although he had a nice game yesterday, and hopefully he's going to continue to ride that hot bat. But now all of a sudden, like, you kind of were in the same boat this year, although expectations, and this is very important, expectations were sky high because of last year. But I feel like this year, to Zach's point, and it's a very good one, have they gotten a good look? What do they really know about Tyler Freeman? I mean, yeah, okay, they know what his makeup is. They know what he's good at and not good at. But, I mean, have they really gotten a big enough sample size to see Tyler Freeman, to see Gabriel Arias, to see, Rocchio, who's not there? And that is probably the most disappointing thing. Ironically, what I said last year, and this was like a week before opening day, I said, I don't think this team's going to do much of anything, maybe 500, because, and even if it's 500, that's fine. I just want to see them go out and play young guys and find out who you have and who you can count on. And at that point, Kwan emerged. Jimenez, you knew Andres Jimenez was gonna be great, but I mean, then you saw All-Star. Then Oscar Gonzalez gets called up. Now, again, these things don't last forever, and teams make adjustments and all that good stuff. But you haven't really done that this year. And, other teams are looking at, we're sitting here saying, well, package Freeman or Arias. Teams are like, we don't really know much about him. What do you know about him? Your own team? Not much. Okay, so why would we know? Why would we place that a significant value on some of these guys when you haven't really played them a whole lot? That's That's a tough pill to swallow, in my opinion. All right, 216-626-7901. Always a pleasure. I mean this. Talking to Zach Meisel, one of the most talented writers. He was the, Bohm, did you know? Brought to you by sports writer, Ohio Sports Writer of the Year in 2021.
I did not know.
That is, they don't just hand those out. They don't just give those away, Bohm. Ohio 2021 Sports Writer of the Year.
That's big time.
And I would never make any jokes about it and say, like, how his ego is,
Man, I wish I knew what was happening right now.
Yeah, there's people at the doors. I think they think Zach is in studio. This happens.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I can't see. Shout out Warden McAllister.
Look at you. You're really getting kind of brazen lately.
It's
Bob.
a little bothersome, Chico.
I kind of like it. Yeah, it's also bothersome that I may have dropped about 18 pounds.
I'm dripping sweat right now.
Yeah, you are. You are sweating profusely. We'll take a break. When we come back, we are gonna just finish up a little something on the Guardians, and we'll touch on that. Also, the Cavs with the Summer League championship. I want to kind of gauge. Is this a big deal for you? Is this appointment TV or nah? And yes, we are just a week away. I think it's less than a week away. The Cleveland Browns, your Cleveland Browns, reporting to Greenbrier in West Virginia for the start of the 2023 campaign. What?
5 days.
Thanks, Bo. I think I said less than a week, but yeah, that would be less than a week.
Counting down the days.
Thanks, Bo. All right. Yeah, we'll be back with me and Mr. Bombastic here. Wipe his brow. It's the Chico Bormann Show. More to come right here in the Big Play Sports Network. And we are back here on the Chico Bormann Show on this Monday afternoon in the Big Play Sports Network. Good to have you along. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter. Stream the show live on Twitter each and every day, Monday through Friday, 11 until 1, at Chico Show CLE. That's at Chico Show CLE. You can also check us out on YouTube and go over, hit the Chico Bormann Show, type that in, subscribe, and, yeah, you're ready to roll. As we are ready to roll. Before we roll into a little Summer League championship, boy, it is the dog days. Speaking of dog days, speaking of heat, and the heat here in studio, I don't know what I would do. Boom, we do not know what we would do without our good friend Layla and Nirvana Superwater. Electrolytes, vitamin D3, every vitamin possible. We need it all after 2 hours. I'm not complaining. Normally, what's funny is it seems like in this industry you're never happy with any temperature, right? Like I've worked at stations where it would be literally like 42 degrees in the studio. Because the important thing is, like, above and beyond anything else, they don't give a damn about, your health. They got to make sure the equipment's good. And I get that. So it's like usually very cold. And here, Warden McAllister has really turned up the heat. Not figuratively, literally turned up the heat. So without Nirvana Superwater replenishing us, and without Nirvana Superwater, in this case, the delicious orange peach infused with HMB, look that up, used in cancer treatments all across the country, all over the world. Without these guys, I don't know where I'd be. And you, too, can check them out. Feelsuper.com. That's Feelsuper. That's all one word, feelsuper.com. And type in the keyword Big Play 20, Big Play 20. You get 20% off your next purchase. Bohm was summoned from the bullpen, a last minute call up for a gig yesterday in Tremont. And of course, I mean, if he sweats profusely in here, you know damn well what he was doing outside in this stuff yesterday. And without it, Bohm, we'd probably be still scraping you off the sidewalk.
Yeah, yesterday was a wild day, Chico. I started off going to band practice bright and early at 1 p.m., right? I brought my Nirvana Seltzer.
Band practice. Kind of sounds like junior high school. I like how you say it.
Yeah, we're preparing for a show in a couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, but so I brought my Seltzer because the thing I love about the Seltzer is that...
Seltzer. Would you just say seltzer? I know you love these accents so damn much.
The thing I love about it, Chico, is that not only does it have the B-complex vitamins, it also has 100 milligrams of caffeine, so it gives you that little added boost. Now, maybe that does make me sweat a little bit more because caffeine just does that in general.
Maybe it also makes you goofy, too.
Maybe.
That might add to the goofiness.
It certainly contributes to the energy levels, that's for sure. But as soon as I found out about this performance, Chico, I had to go home, change, and I made sure to grab a couple of Nirvana Super Waters for the performance because, I was 84 degrees, humid as all get out. I was rocking jeans, Chico, for the brand, and it was a hot day, and I needed every bit of those electrolytes.
Rocking jeans for the brand. What do you mean?
I don't wear shorts on stage.
Why not? Are you a little squeamish about you don't have Saquon like quads?
You've seen my quads. I don't know. They're fine, I guess. But
how would I have seen?
I've worn shorts into the studio before.
Well, I hate to bother you, but could you come over here? I'd like to look at your quads.
Have we officially gone off the rails yet? Is it?
Well, that happens when the mercury gets to be like 114 or something like that, but it's okay. Anyway, so boom, yeah, he was able to get replenished, refreshed, and all that good stuff with Super Water. You can check him out, feelsuper.com. Keyword, Big Play 20. Boom, I don't know what's on the agenda for your busy schedule tonight other than what you normally do from like 1 to 5 a.m., which is jamming, which is good. That's your thing. But if I could make a suggestion, actually, I want to know, forget about making a suggestion. I want to know, you have a choice between, and you can't say both, you have a choice between the Guardians and the Pirates or the Cavaliers and Rockets for the Summer League Championship. Where are you going? Who
Chico,
you got?
I'm inclined to pick Summer League.
That's okay.
Yeah, and look, when you consider the Guardians right now, of all the professional Cleveland sports franchises, I think there is the least optimism with the Guardians. Like, yeah, I still like watching them. Yeah, I still like rooting for them. But there's a lot less excitement surrounding them because it's hard to feel good about where this club is at right now. Meanwhile, there's a lot of excitement brewing inside the Cavaliers, and I don't know how much these players are actually going to make a difference in the upcoming season. But I would like to feel,
any news is good news, right?
Yeah, and I think I'm an overly optimistic person a lot of times when it comes to Cleveland's professional sports teams. I'm really excited about guys like Isaiah Mobley and Imani Bates, who, by the way, I was looking at his numbers. He did not have a bad performance. 20 points. Mobley, again, the leading scorer, though, with 23. But we're seeing a lot of guys with potential here on this club, and I am hopeful that we could see them make an impact in the 2023 season.
How did Imani play defensively? Because it leaves a lot to be desired, I think, on the defensive end. But
sure, and given his size too, like how skinny he is, I think he could just be absolutely bullied on the defensive side of the ball, even if he's putting forth effort in that regard. But
some Hubie Brown type analysis right there. I really enjoyed that, Bo.
I love following the fake Hubie Brown on Twitter.
I follow that account too. It's good.
Yeah,
Very
seems
good.
like a good dude, but great. I read it all in Hubie's voice.
Yeah. I can see a lot of people tuned in for the. First of all, I know there are a few people going, and I've gotten a few messages on Twitter. Wait, the Summer League title game is. I thought it was still going on. It's not. We have our own Victor Wembanyama, who just walked by. Come on in, Rob. Come on in. He's our own Victor Wembanyama joining us here in studio, the hoopster over at Baldwin Wallace. We'll get his thoughts because tonight, as we said, now I don't have to see. I asked you the question. I don't need to ask the question to Rob because I know what his answer is going to be. Can we get you near a microphone? Yeah. Take a load off, man. You've had probably a very, very rough morning, working hard. I'm sure you were doing wall sits, getting ready for hoops and all that good stuff. So you have a choice, Rob. I'll ask it anyway. You can watch the Guardians play the Pirates tonight, or you can watch the Cavaliers and the Rockets battle it out for the Summer League Championship. Who you got?
I would obviously watch the Summer League game.
Okay. So let me ask you, what has made you feel good? Because there's been negative and, certain things. And what has made you feel really good about this Cavs Summer League team and what they've done to get here?
I've seen a lot of progression from the players, for the first game. Like, for example, Imani Bates, the first game, he struggled. But as you've seen him pick up on the defensive end and also just being smarter with his shots and shooting the ball more efficiently. And Isaiah Mobley's looking really good. You're seeing people like Sam Merrill knock down shots and prove that they can provide things that we were looking for this offseason. So it's just been nice to see the younger players try to prove themselves as someone who could be on the team.
I didn't realize Merrill's 27.
Yeah, he has a ring. He's been in the league for a while.
Oh, he does have a ring?
Yeah, I think it was the Bucks. He was part of their organization.
Okay. Yeah, because you're right. He has been shooting it very well. And the other guy, I kind of like. He's kind of the grinder. When I was watching him, the only game that I've watched, full disclosure, was the Bulls and the Cavs on Thursday, and I think is it Craig Porter?
Oh, he's really good.
I like
he's
him.
Super athletic. He's taller, like a combo guard, but he could play the one or the two.
He works his ass off. I love him. Yeah, I love him. All right, so you'll be watching the championship tonight. Any kind of celebration plans? Will there be, any?
No.
Because you got to get up early and do more wall sits. What are you guys doing for hoops right now? Are you allowed to work out or rules?
Yeah, we'll like meet up and out at the school, but it can't be like a coach thing. That's not allowed right now, but we could plan to meet up on our own and go up there. And I'm one of the older people, so I'll try to get people to.
So it's voluntary workouts.
Yeah.
Not so voluntary workouts. Intern Rob, obviously, hoopster with Baldwin Wallace. Rob, it's great seeing you today. No big disagreements between the two of us lately. It's kind of boring. We got to come up with a good one.
It'll get spiced up when like round season and all that comes up.
Oh, yeah. By the way, if you head back there, which I think you're heading back to the offices, please send my condolences and Bohm's to Padone for the fact that DeAndre Hopkins will not officially be now with the Browns.
I will definitely do that.
Really upset. I really wanted to see that happen, particularly for $27 million over 2 years. But unfortunately, the Titans beat him to it.
It's your boy, Chico.
That's your boy. Because that's your boy. What about your boy, Wilbon? Your boy, D-Hop. All right. Thank you, Rob. 216-626-7901. 216-626-7901. So, yeah, I think just out of sheer curiosity, I think many more people are going to be, and there is the idea that, yes, the Guardians play 162 games, and, well, right now everybody's not exactly jumping for joy and super optimistic over what's been going on. Here's what I wonder, Bohm. Do you think that the fire, the vitriol, as Zach Meisel termed it, and he's right, after the weekend and the sweep, do you think the vitriol would be as fierce if Bieber didn't also land on the IL? Like, I feel like that was the one that really kind of sent, not that that's anyone's fault, but I think people, how do I say, in a roundabout way, they were looking more forward to August 1st, and some people wanted to see Bieber dealt to see if they could get somebody for, they always like the hot new name, right? The new guy, maybe it's a young bat, so we want to, bring him in. And I think the combination of being swept by Texas, who, by the way, is one of the best teams in baseball, no doubt, but the sweep in Texas coupled with Shane Bieber going on the IL, I think sent people kind of flying off the handle a bit.
Yeah, Chico, if a collective groan was a life event, it's probably Shane Bieber going on the IL. Because, just seeing...
Say that one more time, Paul.
If a collective groan was a life event, it's probably Shane Bieber going on the IL.
Okay.
Because I saw... I mean, I don't want to say that, Guardians Twitter was in shambles, but it was storming over in the Guardians Twitterverse. And
they were very, pitchforks were. I mean, and I expected it to be.
Yeah,
and I think
especially because it started as an unspecified reasoning, and so just left to speculate.
No, and you know what else? I'm leaving this out. I know somebody's gonna message me on this. The fact that they lost with Trevor Stephan blowing it, either way, a sweep's a sweep. But I just like Zach said. You know what? It's the same pothole that instead of calling the city and saying, we need you to fix it or we're going to drive around it, you just drive over it over and over and over again. And Stephan, unfortunately, this guy was money last year, and he stumbled, and then he started to kind of get it together, and then, oh boy, yesterday happened, and I think I really haven't. Maybe that's really the thing. Not so much Bieber on the IL as much as kind of the cherry on the sundae, so to speak, being the fact that Trevor Stephan blew it like he blew it in the bullpen, and that's how you got the sweep.
That was a great pun, the Sunday, Chico. Was that intentional?
Cherry on the sun.
Because it was on Sunday.
It was not. Oh, man. And
good job out of you.
No,
I love an unintentional pun.
But if it's unintentional, then, you get
as long as someone's there to catch it. It's like if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there, it's the opposite, the inverse.
But see, I wish I would. Now you're making me a little upset that I didn't think of it that way, because then I would have been so. I want Uncle Castro to.
I was just gonna. What would his reaction be to you not noticing that pun? He certainly would have caught it.
Yeah.
Would it
Yeah,
have
he
disappointed him?
Remember what we asked him on what we brought up on Friday? That Latto was talking about a guy that the Guardians drafted late, Case Matter, closer from Washington. Now, when he comes into the game, do you consider the game or Case or Matter to be closed? Oh man!
Only if he gets the save.
Yeah, that was. I don't think I'm putting enough on the way that game ended yesterday. That it wasn't just the sweep. It was Stephen, because it was like, here we go again.
Now, Chico, during the series, I've noticed we've seen Terry Francona starting to come under fire. And I don't really know how much I put onto him. I mean, I could see fans being upset with maybe leaving Stephen in a little too long yesterday. But at what point do you think maybe fans might, because it feels like some are starting to turn on Tito?
Well, here's what I'll say, and the criticism is fair in terms of, like, I heard a lot of, my God, how many times are you going to go to Trevor Stephan in high leverage situations before you get burned? Well, the truth of the matter is he wasn't going to him for a while. Then he started to get it back. I mean, you've got to put him out there. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to make it sound like he has no choice. Yeah, he does, but he's trying to get him back into his role where he was a lights-out setup man last year, and you're thinking that he's going to get there, and he started to a little bit before the break, and then it just so happens it's, like I said, you're doing it in that situation, and I can't emphasize this enough, against that lineup. Now, when you walk guys, that's what really kills you. I mean, you against a team like Texas or Atlanta, who they recently faced, if you're giving guys a free pass and then having 2, sometimes 3 bases loaded up, and then I've got to pitch to Corey Seager, I've got to pitch to Matt Olson, I've got to pitch to. You're asking for trouble, and they've gotten that trouble. They've asked for it, and they've received it.
He also hasn't pitched in like a week and a half, which you kind of touched on. But I feel like going back out there after like that long of that much time off.
Well, everybody's had that much time off. So I
realize that, but also I think that there's something to be said about a pitcher who hasn't gone that long needing to shake a little bit of the rust off.
So
pitchers like the routines, like a starter is used to pitching every 5 days.
I agree with that, but I'm asking in regards to the context of your question was Terry Francona.
Sure.
And what's he supposed to do? Like have somebody warming up in their house, like over the break? Like you're gonna have
simulated games for you.
And I don't know if they're. That was just bad. I mean, there's no two ways about it. That was really, really bad. By the way, tomorrow on the show, we're going to shift gears, talk some football. Very excited. We'll be having this guy on throughout the course of the season. A former colleague of ours. I'm James Rapine. James Rapine, Locked On Bengals. Used to work with him here in Cleveland. Love the guy. Doing great work down in Cincinnati. I want to start, now that camps are just about ready to open, start looking around, talking about Cincinnati a little bit. Let's peek in on Baltimore. Let's peek in on Pittsburgh. So, yeah, we'll do that tomorrow. Hang on a second, Bohm. I can see. Bohm's like, right here. Right.
I got something to say.
You're like the teacher. You're like the student. Okay, kids.
I know. Pick me.
What's 8 times 5? Oh, I know.
40.
Don't mess with me on multiplication tables. What were you going to say, Bo? What was so dire important?
On the topic of James Rapine, I have one James Rapine interaction in my life. I was covering the Cavaliers for a certain station, and I happened to sit right next to James Rapine, and we talked for a little bit, and I'm fairly positively certain that he wouldn't remember me, but I have met Rapine one time.
Of course he will remember you. By the way, Rapine also, all my former colleagues and current colleagues are reproducing right and left. Rapine recently had I think a little girl. So he's going to be taking, he actually said, he goes, how long is the interview going to take? I'm like, well, it's not going to be like a full hour. He's like, okay, cool. Cause I have to feed, there's feeding time. And I'm like, are you feeding her? Cause that would be a feat if like the dad could actually feed, naturally feed. And Rapine's pretty buff. I don't think he has, there's no man boobs with Rapine.
I have no comment on the matter other than that comment.
Anyway, we will talk to James Rapine tomorrow, Locked On Bengals at high noon, because, yes, it will not be long now. It seems like it, but it won't be long now. Football is right around the corner. Browns reporting to camp. They're going to start it out in Greenbrier in West Virginia, get away, a little camaraderie, maybe play a little cornhole, maybe do some bowling, maybe some putt-putt. Work on our chemistry, and then get down to business. We will do that tomorrow with Rapine coming up at high noon. Thanks to Zach Meisel for joining us from the Athletic. Guardians taking on the Pirates, beginning a 3-game series in the Berg. Quinn Priester is making his Major League debut for the Pirates. Of course, everybody's heard of him. Xavier Curry, who's actually been very, very good. Terry Francona has praised Xavier Curry a lot. He's been more relief. I don't even think he was he didn't make the club out of camp. Then they had to add him because McKenzie went down, and then he's done like 3 and 4 inning stints. He's done 1 inning stints. Well, now he's going to start. Xavier Curry will against Quinn Priester. So those of you that want to watch that, you've got that. Those of you who want to watch the Cavaliers and the Rockets, you have that. Those that may want to go back and watch The Sopranos. By the way, Bohm, I'm a little confused. I'm on episode 2, season 1, and it's hard to follow. Is it hard to follow initially? Like, I can't keep track. Apparently, he's got a beef with Uncle
Junior?
Yeah, I almost said Uncle Jesse, like from Dukes of Hazzard. No, Uncle Jesse, too, from Dukes. Yeah. Does it get easier to follow, or are people just going, no, it's pretty...
I think it gets more interesting for sure. But, there's definitely some... I like the start of it, but the storylines to me got better and better as the seasons went on. Just bringing in more characters into the fold, maybe certain characters that are kind of just easy to hate are less prevalent.
Wouldn't mind seeing a little more Jamie Lynn Sigler.
Yeah. Sure. And there's definitely more of her in it.
Good. Also felt bad for the mom burning that eggplant or whatever the hell she was cooking on the stove the other day.
She always just wants sympathy.
Oh dear, we got a 5-alarm. Oh dear, get home. All right, we're gonna take this home right now. Limping badly, but we're gonna take it home. For Michael Bohm, I'm Chico Bormann. Again, tune in tomorrow morning, beginning at 11 until 1. Find us on Twitter at Chico Show CLE, on YouTube, The Chico Bormann Show. Hit subscribe, all set to go. James Rapine talking Bengals tomorrow and recapping the Cavs and Rockets, Guardians, all that stuff. Until then, make it a great Monday, everybody. See ya.